Hey, in today's episode, we're going to have the community managers, Baskinator and Mitchimus. You guys already know them from our previous episode. And we are going to have a special guest, and I'm going to let the guest introduce himself right now.
Hey, my name is Alex Kravchenko. You may know me as Alexus, the most hated person on subreddit of Helldivers 2. And I am a senior game designer here at Arrowhead. I joined exactly 2 years ago. So I joined like half a year before the game went live. And I was mostly working on weapons, stratagems, and all things that go into warbonds. One little small piece of trivia for you all is the team that is working on warbonds, it is actually called Ministry of Defense. So I can say to my mother that, yeah, Mom, I'm making weapons for the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And right now you're working mostly on warbonds? Is that what it is at the moment?
Yeah, warbonds and stratagems, and occasionally like ship modules when we were updating those.
Okay, cool. So you guys just dropped a warbond, right? Been having a lot of test time with it, playing with it, just testing everything in all kinds of environments and whatnot. And if it's okay with you guys, what I would like to do is, start from the beginning, because if we get to the war pack, that's the most fun part. And there's just so much to talk about the war pack. So let's start with, like, for example, the primary weapon, and make our way through the warbond. And then I would also really love to hear the thought process behind the whole, just the creation of warbonds in general. So the first thing I want to really break down with you is the primary weapon, right? Because it's one of the most unique weapons when it comes to like how many modes it has. And, it has a shotgun mode and a specific very high damage mode and whatnot, which is pretty cool. Like personally for me, and my community knows this as well, I don't really play with light pen weapons when I play on max difficulty. You know what I mean? We got explosives and plasmas, and those are my play style. And I truly do believe that they're like, when it comes to performance on max difficulty, those weapons just outperform many other weapons, also like shotguns with fire and so on. And when it comes to the light pen, how was it designed? Like where did the damage come from? Like what was the idea behind it, the modes and so on? That would be really, really nice to hear.
Yeah, so we had the idea of introducing like a volley gun to the game a while ago, and it was just lying there in our gigantic pile of all the ideas of all the weapons and stratagems that we eventually want to add to the game. But we never could find like a good slot for it because it's such a weird, wacky weapon. And the way we do warbonds is we usually have some sort of a theme, some sort of a fantasy that we want to convey with the whole warbond, something for players to role play as. So finally, when we went into the control group warbond, finally it kind of clicked for us that, hey, we have this weird idea of this monstrosity of a weapon. Let's do a weapon with 7 barrels, and you can, I don't know, which fire mode is it gonna have? I don't know. Let's put all of them into it.
Yeah, so it
kind of started working as a, experimental weird stuff. When it comes to the light pen, it's just not from the realism standpoint, but from the believability standpoint. This looks like a weapon that fits a very, like the bullet of a very small caliber, like the pistol bullet almost. Yeah. So it makes sense for it to be light pen, which is what we started with. And after that, we kind of expanded into like how many rounds does it hold, and how many do you actually shoot in a single wallop. But it started as a light armor penetration just because it made sense from the standpoint of the weapon design.
Okay, so
it fucking slaps.
So when it comes to, like, for example, the how it is like the demand in the community as well, right? And I think there is another aspect to it, right? Like believability is like obviously one part of it, and then the second part is, for example, when a new warbond comes out and there's a new weapon with it, people are always asking, oh, you think it's going to be medium pen? How do you guys work with that? You know that a lot of people, for example, want medium pen. So what is the thought process behind that?
Well, we usually don't try. There's no we never try to cover all aspects of introduce a light, medium, and heavy penetration weapons in a single warbond. We just add toys that make sense for this warbond. And considering how many we shipped throughout the year and a half,
Every month, pretty
people
much.
will find enough toys to kind of make it work with the new weapon, even if it is like light armor penetration.
Okay, so every warbond is more of a like a role play themed thing. You know what I mean? To fit in different aspects, and not the whole warbond is going to be built around, let's say, medium pen or heavy pen or so on. So essentially, like for example, for a player like myself who plays on max difficulty, or let's say Takibo and Thick, and you know the boys that play on max difficulty all the time, you know there's going to be other tools like plasma weapons and stuff like that that we're going to be using more than the light weapon, for example, right? And do you think that the light weapon is even supposed to feel that powerful compared to, or do you think each one of these weapons has their spots in a way?
I would say that for the primary weapon slot, the light armor penetration is the baseline. Most of the primary weapons, at least we want them to be light armor penetration, because this is the weapon that you always have with you. So it should be, I don't know, good enough to kill chaff and like medium enemies, and maybe damage big enemies like Hulks and Chargers. But that's about it. They're not supposed to. This equipment slot is not supposed to be used for all scenarios. The stratagems and support weapons are the unique thing about Helldivers. So this is the star of the show. This is our, diamond, the pearl. So we want that to shine and that to be used. They are more, specialized, which is why we want them to be specific, like can openers against tanks, for example, or dedicated, I don't know, chaff clearer with a flamethrower, stuff like that. But primaries, the baseline is the light armor. The Liberator is practically the primary weapon. And everything else, we try to go with like side grades. And when we give other weapon medium armor penetration in the primary slot, that has to be, that weapon has to have some gigantic trade-offs. For example, a fire rate with Deadeye and the Raptor, or the weapon that hurts you like the double-edged sickle, right? There has to be a gigantic trade-off for the convenience of medium armor pen in the primary weapon slot.
Yeah, so you have to kind of build around it and not have one tool that is supposed to do everything the best way, because then the primary would hurt like the other things that you're going to be using essentially. I think the perspective from the players usually is this, right? That, for example, the most time you spent is with the guns, right? So for example, you might have a red stratagems, you might throw it a 500, go crazy on it, have a good time, but your guns are the items that you spend the most time with. And we've had this conversation as well between us content creators and the community as well. For example, before weapon customization dropped, there was a bunch of light weapons, right? Like that had different kinds of ammo economies and whatnot. And now that they have drum mags and stuff like that, which made them way more viable, right? Like they feel better. The quality of life is better in terms of like you don't have to be reloading every 2-3 seconds, especially when you're fighting on max difficulty. And by the way, I'm covering this in terms of like max difficulty performance. And even with when we got the drum mags and everything like that on those weapons, they still don't feel OP, right? Like they're viable, they're good, but I personally would still not pick those up over, as you mentioned, for example, my favorite, by the way, Purifier. It's my baby. Okay, that one. Or Eruptor or the fire shotguns. But they definitely have their slot. There's a bunch of people that like to use the light pen weapons with drum mags and build around it. Some call them like mini stalwart. For example, one of the Liberators goes crazy on high fire rate and people enjoy it a lot, right? So yeah, everything is supposed to have a slot essentially. And that's how these warbonds are kind of built around and role play modeled into it, right? Okay. And one of the coolest, the next tool is the Epoch. And I want you to open up with this one because I'm really interested. Plasma is my favorite in the game. Plasma and probably fire. Those two. I think fire first, but plasma too. The two of my favorite.
Fire and even hotter fire.
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead and that's probably one of your babies. So I'd love to hear it.
The whole warbond was so much fun to work on because finally we got to, we were let loose and we just had to design stuff without any, strict restrictions about the particular fantasy. We are building our own fantasy practically this time. So for the Epoch, it also was in our pile of ideas for a while, and we made it in the past. We had a couple of iterations of this weapon before. never worked out just as a plasma support weapon, never found its niche. It was either outshined by like Quasar, or it started to compete with, I don't know, grenade launchers. So like by tweaking the values here and there,
Yeah.
and like figuring out the trade-offs, it never felt unique, which is why we never shipped it. Even though we would love to, introduce all elements like plasma, arc, fire, and so on, and introduce it with all the different delivery mechanisms like orbitals and support weapons and primaries and secondaries and throwables. But finally, for this warbond, we dug out the plasma blaster, which is what it's called in developer files, and we're like, okay, how can we make it volatile and super powerful so it hits like a truck, but it has some sort of a trade-off? And if you notice with this warbond, it is very it rewards your skill, and it takes some time to get used to all the weapons and all the tools like the war pack.
Yep.
And the idea for the Epoch was, once you master it, then it will outperform some other more convenient anti-tank options or anti-chaff options. So yeah, after that, it started as exactly what it is right now, a single like charge up weapon that shoots a single huge ball of plasma. It did not feel good initially. That was interesting. And it went through a bunch of iterations. We tried like rapid fire plasma, similar to, I don't know, you can find in Quake games, for example, just a plasma machine gun. We tried some sort of a charge up shotgun that shoots a bunch of like plasma balls. It also didn't feel good. And finally, we did the whole loop and came back to the original idea of, charging up. You may overcharge it and explode, but if you time it just right, it slaps. I gotta admit, we kind of dropped the ball on the spread a little bit, but we're gonna fix it soon. So after that, hopefully, people will start to it will start to grow on people. From what I heard, it's kind of as much as the whole warbond, it's very polarizing. People either hate it or they love it, which I think that's just fine for introducing any new tool, especially the one that is very risk reward kind of theme.
Yeah, I think the Epoch for me, like as I said, I like plasma weapons. I do think that, as you said, the spread is an issue. Like we've had some shots where, for example, there was a Hulk. Takibo sent me this clip. There was a Hulk like 10 meters away from him. You shoot at him and it like completely like ignores it, almost like goes to the right. You know what I mean? So yeah, the spread, it's good to hear that that's being worked on. Is there a possibility to add one more shot in the magazine?
I don't see why not. One of the arguments for it was a lot of enemies take 2 shots to be killed. So it would make sense that it's an even number of shots in the single capsule. We need to look into that because then it changes the total damage output of the whole, like of all the ammo that you have. Maybe we will tone that down, because usually when you like tweak one lever, one slider, you need to kind of trade some sort of other trade-off. But we'll look into that. I can't promise anything. We need to look into the stats. We need to look into the players' feedback. And then maybe we'll consider it. It's not impossible because, we have control over that, right?
Yeah, so the thing is, right, like if it had 4 shots, it would give you the ability to, if you're getting attacked by 2 chargers, you focus on one real quick, and then you focus on the second one, 2 shots per head, and take him out. It's like in a spot where it's uneven, so I can kill a charger with 2 shots, but then I have to reload in case, you know what I mean? Like if there's more than one again and that kind of stuff. So I think it would benefit it, and I don't think it would make it OP as well. I think it would still sit in a spot where it is, but it's going to also be interesting to see how it feels, as you mentioned, after the spread change, right? Like, because that's going to make a difference for sure. So an extra bullet and spread, I think, would be perfect for it. And the damage, in terms of damage, where do you think it is? Like, what was the vision behind the damage?
I would say that so it was supposed to be a bit more flexible than, let's say, a recoilless or a quasar, because with a quasar, you charge it off for 5 seconds, you shoot something once if you are good with it, and then you wait for 10 seconds cooldown, right? With this thing, you can damage a bunch of enemies or dump everything into a single bile titan, stuff like that. So you have more flexibility here, which is why we came with like not a single reload like the railgun, while you're just running around and able to reload it on the go. And we did introduce backpack as well. So it's in the middle in terms of the commitment to like each shot. So I would say with the whole commitment, you have to charge it up, and you have to be very specific with the timing, because it's very
And how much of a
punishing
difference
if you don't time it.
is it? Like if you perfect time it from if you don't?
Yeah. It's pretty big difference. It's difference in one level of armor penetration. It goes from heavy armor penetration to anti-tank.
Yep, exactly.
And since most of the damage is in the explosion, which is a specific thing for plasma-based weapons, it's more effective than a single shot, because like recoilless, for example, with recoilless, you need to actually bonk the enemy, because the projectile damage is what deals the majority of damage.
Yeah.
Shooting under the enemy with the recoilless and the explosion doesn't deal as much.
Okay.
With the plasma weapons, it's fine to shoot under the enemy, because the bulk of the damage, the bigger bulk of the damage, is still in the explosion itself, and the difference between inner radius and outer radius is not as big. Like the inner radius is closer to the outer one. So it's more forgiving in that sense. You don't have to hit the enemy straight away, which makes it also work more of an anti-chaff as well. Like you can kill a group of devastators, for example, with that thing if they're close enough.
Just a few minutes ago, you also mentioned something very, very interesting, right? Like you said, for example, one of the weapons was created on like believability, right? When you guys go over those things, how do you guys balance, for example, the amount of believability and the amount of damage or fun that the weapon can provide? Like where's the line for you? Because from my own, for example, feedback that I get, it is like, oh, okay, another light pen weapon. You know what I mean? And that's where it kind of goes into. So I would love to hear like how that works in the process.
Well, I would say realism versus fun is it's a way of looking at things, but we don't see it as two opposites of the same scale, right? Or like believability versus fun, it's not the same scale. Neither is believability versus efficiency or power level. Because some of the weapons that are quite powerful, we're pushing the boundaries with what is believable. And for some of the underused weapons, underpowered weapons, we're also doing a lot of, we're closing our eyes on how effective some of the weapons are. Melee weapons, for example, a ceremonial sword can cut a gigantic bug the size of a polar bear in front of you. Is that thing even sharp? We're not sure. Throwing knives deal an insane amount of damage compared to like some firearms, right? So we're pushing the boundaries as long as it feels good, because the main mission for us is to make the game fun, especially for us designers. We want the game to be fun for you, and we want you to feel like a badass. But at the same time, there has to be some challenge involved, right? Because for you to feel like a badass, you need to overcome some challenge, and you need to fight, and despite all the odds against overwhelming enemies, you still manage to like send the ICBM or save civilians, stuff like that. So the challenge still has to be there. Even though we give you a lot of overpowered stuff, we want you to be challenged, which is how which is where the fun is. Yeah. To get better, to get more efficient, and to be proud of what you've actually accomplished. That also comes to like light and medium weapons as well. Shooting enemies in the weak spots is also kind of a challenge that we want you to challenge yourself with. If you don't want to, if you like the convenience of spraying anywhere on the enemy body, then sure, go for it. Grab like a adjudicator or something like that.
Or the purifier, my baby.
Purifier, yes. Yeah. Double-edged sickle. Grab a revolver. That thing penetrates everything but tanks, I guess. So we give you options, and we can't tell you how to play the game, right? So we give you a bunch of options. And it's up to you if you want to challenge yourself and be rewarded for very precise shots, because usually light armor penetrating bullets, they deal more damage, like the tenderizer, for example, where we reward your precision. Or if you want to just run and gun, absolutely be my guest. We have plenty of medium armor penetration weapons.
Yeah. Do you think that, like you mentioned, challenge, right? And do you think that in
Yeah.
the future, instead of like, for example, right now we have 10 difficulties, but new modes could be like really challenging, right? Like they
Yeah.
could also completely switch the game as well. Like imagine like Helldivers 2 with a mode where you have like one life or something like that. Or maybe this is crazy, by the way, but you're going into the Bile Titan nest and that's where you're fighting with one life. There's no way out. There's no extraction. You have to get in, complete something and find your way out, something like that. And in that case, do you think that would be more of a viable and more natural selected, so to speak, challenge implementing into the game than what we have right now? Or do you think it's just because of, we've been doing this difficulty 10 for a while now and people are just earning for something new in terms of a challenge?
I think it's both. Obviously, it wouldn't hurt to introduce new difficulty levels because, like, the whole community kind of feels right now that the high-skilled players, for them, the game is quite easy, even in like difficulty 10 with optional factions like the Jet Brigade or the what's they called?
Predators. Dude,
Yeah,
Predators are
strain, for
still
example.
rough. I'm not gonna lie. Predators are still rough. They're deadly.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, they're the deadliest. Like Jet Brigade, yeah, they can be deadly, but when they chase you down, they're scary, dude. Like they can mess you up. I've had some solo gameplays where I think everything's good, and then there's this one invis predator sitting somewhere in the corner, jumps at me, sprays me, hits me at the same time. Boom, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So they are for sure the deadliest. And when it comes to
they
challenge,
are more punishing, I would say.
Yeah, they're incredible. I actually really like that design. I think that they're the coolest enemy in the game. Because
this is probably something I can't promise anything because first of all, I can't promise any future potential content or any updates. But also, I don't work at the enemies or missions team. But seems like the consensus is this is the way to scale the game further is with optional modifiers and optional difficulties. Like if you want to challenge yourself right now, you can already kind of run the hardcore game and just restart the mission if you die the first time. But we might want to introduce something like some optional opt-in
one
ways to
option.
Challenge yourself even more.
That would be actually really nice.
Because what we found is like we don't want to scale the difficulty by just introducing more enemies because we're hitting like performance limitations as well. But also we don't want to, armor up all the enemies all the time. Because imagine if we introduce, I don't know, Bile Titan version 2 with fully armored and nothing but spear can penetrate or something like that. That's not fun for other part of the community as well. Because like even if you brought a specific like a recoilless or a spear, like a specific cookie cutter for this specific enemy, you're good. But if you didn't, then you can't do anything about those kinds of enemies, right? Which is an issue that we had on release where we had spawned too many chargers and too many Bile Titans, and you just didn't have enough fuel to kill all of them. You didn't have enough ammo to kill all of them, and there was like the spawn rates of Bile Titans were insane. So we realized that we don't want to scale the game by just giving you more armored enemies, but something more trickier, like the bots that jump on you or the predator strain, stuff like that. That introduces interesting opt-in challenge that you can choose to fight on this planet, or if you want to participate in like a major order, for example, or you can absolutely go back and have a vanilla experience. It's up to you.
And is that, I'm guessing that's also, as you said, in a way guided by the fact that there will be some performance limitations, right? Is that it? Because like you can't.
Well, we can't spawn them infinitely.
Yeah, like, and is there a possibility, since we're talking about challenge, like of a horde mode kind of mode? You know what I mean? Like where there's spawn, it's close to eradicate mission, right?
Yeah.
But like that proceeds when it comes to a little bit longer. Like Space Marines did it, but like Space Marines is way too long. Like you get to like level 30 and it's like 3 hours. That's insane. But like, something a little bit maybe faster, eradicate, but that could go further and somewhere you get overwhelmed, something like that.
I can't see why not. Like again, I haven't heard of any ideas like that in development. But right now, just personally, I would be interested in an infinite eradicate mission where just hordes slowly scale up until you can't do this anymore.
Yeah, but in terms of performance, is it possible? Like, would it hold up, or is it?
We have some limitations in terms of the total number of units we can spawn.
I got you.
Space
Okay.
Marine built the whole tech just to spawn those hordes that are so satisfying to kill. We don't have that tech, unfortunately. Every enemy is kind of not a particle.
Yeah.
it's enemy isolated unit with its own logic. So
I see.
it hits our performance at some point when we spawn at 5,000 of them.
I mean, there are some crazy clips out there, dude. Like when people are sitting on a cliff and they look over and there's a bug everywhere.
Yeah.
And then they throw in a 500 and you see like a crazy number or like a, some fire in there. Yeah, that's always pretty cool.
They usually throw orbital napalm barrages, which is my pride and joy, because I made that thing in like 10 minutes. I just YOLO'd I duplicated the barrage. I made it a napalm projectile and like spawned fire. And I kind of YOLO'd it and we play tested it later and like, okay, that hits the spot. That's exactly what we wanted. And then I started seeing, when it went live, I started seeing all those clips of like people getting 100 kills, 200 kills. I'm like, okay, people accepted it the way I actually wanted.
Yeah, and they stand there with the hug emote just like this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's actually pretty cool. Yeah, that is one of my favorite orbitals to use against the bugs, actually. I think it's very, very powerful, especially like if you're covering distance, you just throw it down and keep moving, and nothing gets close to you apart from like Bile Titans, but now fire deals damage to them as well, so they're pretty easy to take down right after.
And it scales with the size of the enemy.
Yeah,
nowadays.
It's so good. Fire is so good right now. And
thanks, I'm proud of that thing. It took me literally 10 minutes.
This is my personal thoughts, but I think fire is the most interesting thing in the game when it comes to that. The way it scales, and it also provides, you know what it provides? It provides different kinds of play styles. So you can use a torture, right? You can put on this big target on fire, then move, then put him on fire again, then move, and you don't have to like directly go for it. It provides gameplay for example, even the scythe to deal damage to bigger enemies with the burn. And then what you can do is combine them. So you put something on fire, then you swap to your, for example, stalwart, and you're double damaging them for a few seconds, essentially. And it's just a really cool playstyle, one of my favorites. And
I started to appreciate flamethrowers against the Illuminates recently because they melt the, what are they called? The flash mob?
Yes, they do. And really cool
and
thing
against like the small voteless as well.
For flash mobs, for the harvesters, you can literally put on the arc armor. And then you can just walk up to them and just melt them. There's nothing they can do, and they die within seconds. It's actually really fun. So yeah, those were the first items that I tested in the warbond, the Epoch, and the primary weapon. And then it was the grenade, right? The grenade. And I think you guys are in a pretty tough spot when it comes to grenades. I'm gonna be honest, because the grenades they have become so good in many ways in the game, and there's so many, like, for example, if you're playing the bots, thermites and pyros are really good right now. Like, they're really good. Like, you pick up thermite, you run in there. If it's a Hulk, if it's a, factory strider, you cook them up. And then you have the pyros too, especially in group play. Pyros do really well. And then on the bug side, you have the gas grenade, right? Like, it's so good. The new grenade actually does pretty good against the bugs. I don't think that the grenade is like, I wouldn't say it's like the top 3, 4, 5, but I think has a use, right? There are some grenades that I probably won't use a lot at all, but I can see myself use this grenade. We're discussing that in Discord yesterday as well, against, for example, Illuminates, and sometimes even against bugs. And what was the idea behind the grenade? Like, how did it come together?
Well, first of all, we're kind of in a tough spot. We're all over the place because we have primaries that are very hard to compete with nowadays. We have throwables that are insanely. How do you even compete with a thermite nowadays, right? Yeah. We have stratagems that are, well, I wouldn't say overtuned, but they perform exactly the way you would expect them and the way you want them. So yeah, we're in a tough spot when we're adding any new content. We need to squeeze that in between all the other weapons and try to make it viable and fun option if you want to, and it should be powerful enough so you don't feel like you're handicapping yourself by picking our grenade, stuff like that. And with this particular grenade, we also had it in a while, but it was, again, it didn't feel special. It didn't feel good in the initial design. In the initial design, you just throw it. It has a timer, and like in a second, it explodes and sends arcs all over the place. Didn't feel special, didn't feel like it could compete or even stand out compared to other throwables. So with this experimental warbond, we decided, okay, how can we push it more? So instead of just having a single lightning in a jar, we made it 5 lightnings in a jar and make it just jump around. Sometimes it goes towards you, and I'm like, oh no, and you're just running away.
Yeah.
And still trying to make it hits like a truck. Like when actually arcs hit the targets, they deal a lot of damage. I don't think the UI actually shows all the damage that it deals in the loadout. So yeah, we try to push it, make it volatile, make it extremely volatile against your fellow Helldivers, or like in cities against Civ soldiers and civilians. So it fits the theme just right. And I think we pushed it enough with this whole experimental theme to make it fun enough and like it's powerful enough as an option now. So I'm happy that it's okay. It's not in top 5, but it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
A tier, B tier. I'm absolutely fine with that. Especially for people who want to run the whole Zeus build with just the blitzer, arc grenade, and the arc thrower.
Arc thrower, yeah. And now you have
I found that I use it almost like a gas grenade, actually, because with gas grenade, I usually throw it into the enemy. I have gas resistant armor, and I just run around safe. With this thing, I also do kind of like this. I throw a couple of grenades, and I'm wearing the cutting edge armor usually.
Yes.
So I am safe there around all those stunned dumbasses that
yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, I think it's a pretty fun tool. Like usually, for example, you know, when you add something, and there are times where you're going to look at the warbond and you're going to say, okay, this I will never use. Like this is just not for me. I don't think that's the grenade in this case. I feel like there will be some uses for the grenade. The warp back, bro. We'll talk about the armor, but I can't wait anymore. Okay, we got to talk about the warp back. We'll talk about the armor. Dude, I kid you not, I played for hours. I have a video on the way. It is, in my opinion, the coolest tool in the game. And when you're mentioned skill gap, this is the definition of that. There's so many different cool things you can do with the warp pack that I don't think people realized at the beginning, right? So for example, you can dive stim into a teleport. It's so crazy when you do it. And like when you're running away from enemies, you can even like jump backwards, dive, stim, teleport out. And what were you guys afraid of? Like there probably was something you were like, are we shipping this too crazy? Are we shipping this underwhelming? Let us know.
All right, how much time we got? Because I will never shut up about the war pack. This is my pride and joy. I am super proud of the way it turned out. Okay, starting from the beginning. In Helldivers 1, we had a similar tech. It was a perk, displacement field, I believe. And for Helldivers 2, at some point, we also implemented a similar behavior. But the way it worked was it saves you from death. Like when you're about to get hit and like die, it saves you from death and it teleports you randomly somewhere. And that worked just fine in Helldivers 1 with the top-down view. But it was incredibly disorienting for Helldivers 2 with a third-person camera. But also, when the teleport is kind of random, just when you get hit, like you get a random headshot from across the map and suddenly you teleport and appear somewhere like 50 meters away, that never felt good. Besides, it could also teleport you into even more danger than the one that you're currently in. So it never justified using a backpack slot for something that might or might not save you when you want it or not want it. So when we started this warbond, we kind of quickly realized that it's going to be the gem of the warbond, that we have to make it very good. So the first 2 changes that we made was, first of all, the jump should be on demand and shouldn't be reactive by taking damage or like having enemies close to you. It should be on demand using the spacebar button or like the jump button on the gamepad. And it should be kind of safe. It shouldn't be a random teleport somewhere you don't know where. It should be following where you actually have to use it as a tool in a predictable way. And predictability of this backpack was very hard to balance when we're also supposed to make it unstable and experimental and weird and early access, right?
Yeah.
So when we started discussing we made the teleportation go, okay, it's fun enough, just jumping, blinking forward. Okay, how do we make it special now? And we had a bunch of ideas. For example, okay, what if you have infinite jumps, but sometimes randomly it explodes or hurts you? Just randomly, I don't know, 1 in 100 times, sometimes. Does that sell the fantasy of it being experimental and weird? Yeah, absolutely. Does that feel good? Probably not. Will you use the weapon or a tool that will sometimes, very, very low chance, kill you? No, you wouldn't trust that kind of tool. So we ditched all of those, randomness that we tried to implement in the beginning. Or what if the cooldown is random and like how much you actually can jump is random? What if you can get stuck in a rock and die? That also didn't feel good, and it didn't feel reliable for the players. So first things first, we made it reliable and safe against the environment. You kind of can clip sometimes into some rocks, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
But an important thing was to make it so you don't get stuck in walls, buildings, rocks, stuff like that. By extension, obviously, you should be able to jump into bunkers because this is just like a wall as any other.
Yeah.
Right. And after that, to sell the whole idea of instability, we ditched the normal cooldown that like jump pack and hover pack have. And instead, I'm super proud of that as well. We introduced this kind of overheating mechanic. Because if you time it right, when you become good with that item, when it becomes your second nature to time your jumps, you are gonna have such a big benefit of being so mobile against enemies.
Yeah.
So I'm proud that we made it very unique, very special, but also I am terrified of this thing. Like the ways people will not break the game, but game the game nowadays with like jumping under the factory strider, throwing a couple of thermites and jumping out. Fantastic. We kind of knew that was going to happen. And I'm proud that, people started to appreciate that toy. But also at the same time, it was a gigantic challenge to kind of make it good and reliable in capable hands. But when we punish you, it should be your fault, right? You jumped too many times, or you jumped into a charger because it's a big enemy. Or you jumped off a cliff, you jumped into mines. That's on you, buddy. But all the normal use, it's kind of safe against the environment.
Yeah, I think that was a great decision from you guys, that you decided to, instead of like the randomness of it, oh, it might kill you or not, have it in your hands and essentially become the extension of the level of a player that you are, right? Like if you wield it correctly, you will benefit. And if you mess it up, you mess it up and that's on you. And I think that that's what the player base really, really needed right now. And the reason I say that is that you guys, if you look at Helldivers 2, right? Like every 4 months it will get an update, and it's more of like, so to speak, like the bigger updates and so on. But the most important ones, arguably, would be the warbonds, because they drop a little bit more often and they help you, have a fresh gameplay loop with the items. And when a warbond drops and some of the items are, let's say, this is why I always mention like performance. People think, oh, I'm a meta guy. I'm actually not. I don't really care about the meta. And I always tell people, you should always play the video game the way you like. If you like and enjoy a light pen weapon and you're having fun with it and creating awesome memories, that should be your goal. Nobody cares about the rest. It's your product. You bought it. Enjoy. Have fun. But at the same time, the reason I mention performance is that if every month, or let's say 40 days, we get a warbond, and if the items in there are not, let's say, performing, right, per se, what happens is people put them away quickly and then they go back to their old items, and it hurts like the longevity of having fun, right? For me right now, I've been testing some stuff off stream, but I haven't played that much off stream. But now with the war pack, I actually enjoy the game because I want to test all of these cool things, dude, and like port it around and go crazy and do some crazy stuff, make some cool kills and so on. And I think it refreshes and puts new life into the game. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it's so important that you guys went with that decision instead of like the randomness, because it would be one of those things people would be like, oh, okay, I can't take this. I'm on max difficulty, for example, or even 7, and now it randomly just exploded. I'm not a big fan of that. And now that's not happening. And that's pretty cool. What was the biggest fear you had? Like, what were you guys thinking could have been a little bit OP, like giving it more jumps, let's say 5 jumps, 7 jumps?
I don't know. The way the feature works was the biggest fear, right? Just the flexibility it gives you, the hills you can climb with that, the how far you can jump with it, how much that speeds you up on like flat terrain if you keep jumping every 5 seconds, stuff like that. Just the way the average jump works was the most terrifying thing. And then we added ways to kind of mitigate that a little bit with the cooldown mechanic and like overheat, destabilize mechanic. But yeah, just giving Helldivers the ability to jump, blink short distances with no disadvantages if you use it correctly, that we obviously knew that it's gonna kind of shake up the meta, and we want to introduce toys like that every warbond. Maybe not every warbond, but yeah, we want to introduce cool toys that are fun to use, that are reliable, and now they synergize with a bunch of items that already exist in the game, right? Unfortunately, we can do that every warbond because some of the fantasies don't allow for that sort of experimental stuff. But yeah, the intent is to always give you some toys that maybe not are super performant on their own, but synergize with other tools, or like complete your loadout, for example.
Yeah, I
One
think
of the
go ahead.
additionally terrifying things was the Helldivers 2 is a sci-fi game, but it's kind of a grounded sci-fi, right? Most of the weapons are conventional, shooting normal bullets. You're throwing normal grenades, and you throw normal explosives from the orbit. Sometimes we're pushing that boundary here and there. We have laser beams and plasma balls, but going into teleportation territory, we're definitely pushing it in terms of how sci-fi-ish we can go.
Yeah.
And the whole warbond, we didn't want to call it like one of the developer names was that I suggested. It wasn't Cutting Edge 2, it was Cutting Edge 0.2, because we wanted, even though we're pushing it in terms of like how wild the tech is, we still wanted to have it, make it grounded and like Helldivers-y, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it is Helldivers-y though. Like, don't you think? Right? It is. It's perfect. Right? In terms of like, even if you look at the war pack, it makes all the sense in the world because of the Illuminate, right? And you take their technology and you make it yours, and the fact that you can control it fully. You know, it still is like almost like wielding too much power, and you can't control it. Also, kind of vibes with the whole lore aspect of it, and that brings us actually to a very cool topic, right? And this is, you have no idea how, well, you probably do, but how much this is talked about is like, okay, for example, it is lore driven and it makes more sense. But where do you like have this line of lore dictating fun in items, right? Like how do you guys work around that?
I think lore and narrative in general and writing is flexible enough to make anything that we can come up with work. It's mostly our concern is with opening new doors. When we open the doors that now we can teleport, that have all sorts of complications and questions. Okay, why don't we teleport Helldivers just on the ground without actually dropping them through Hellpods? Can you teleport from one destroyer onto your friend's destroyer, just teleporting, blinking, instead of unfreezing you from the cryopod, right? Can we teleport a 500 kilo bomb just into the bug nest and explode it and don't have to send Helldivers? So the moment you open that door, this is a terrifying thing. Once you like push the lore a little bit, it's hard to stop, right? And at some point, okay, we're just teleporting everything everywhere. Oh, Illuminate teleport on your ship, which would be fun actually. But we need to be very careful with which doors we're open, and sometimes just crank them open a little bit instead of going, teleportation exists, it's happening. No, at least we explained that, it's unstable. The best you can do is to teleport a single Helldiver-sized entity 10 meters away, and don't do that way too often. So like we try to tone it down, because otherwise it would become just super high sci-fi in terms of, everything is possible, lightsabers and teleportation, and everything has a portable black hole.
Yeah, and from my experience at least, like the reception has been, as you mentioned, polarizing, right? Like some people really like it, some people say there's not enough. And one thing that I've noticed about the warbonds lately, especially the last few, is how much of a high demand there is for medium armor pen weapons. You've probably noticed this as well, right? Like every question is it going to be medium pen? Is it going to be medium pen? Like it always goes down to that conversation. Is there a possibility that, in the future, for example, the next warbond or the next two warbonds, we get like medium pen weapons when it comes to primaries, or is it mostly going to still stick to those light pens?
I would say we'll do medium armor primaries when it makes sense, because we have so many variables, and like the warbonds, as people have cracked already, the warbonds are one of our storytelling tool as well.
Yeah.
So when the fantasy allows, and we can find a good fit for like a medium pen weapon and a warbond, we will absolutely do that. Nothing is stopping us. It's just we want the majority of weapons to be still closer to the baseline because we don't want to. We don't have too many anomalies from the baseline. And when we can figure out something very fun and cool to kind of mitigate the power that you get with the medium armor pen. For example, double-edged sickle is a good example. We gave it heavy armor pen when we redesigned it a little bit. Because for this weapon, that weapon absolutely should just melt all the enemies because you are the hit sink, right? It's melting you at the same time.
Yeah.
So to compensate and to make it worth your time and the time of the teammate that is constantly steaming you with a stim pistol, absolutely it should just shred all the enemies. Or the lever action rifle, the Deadeye. Absolutely, it shoots pretty fat bullets, and the fire rate is pretty low. So absolutely, it should just stagger every enemy and stop it on their tracks and deal a massive damage with medium armor pen. So when it makes sense and when the warbond allows for that, absolutely we will do more medium armor pen weapons.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned this as well, by the way, that some people enjoy using those kind of light pen weapons and going for those crispy shots, and then there's purifier, and you can just hit them wherever you want, and because of the explosion being so effective and so cool, and personally, I always enjoyed in any other game as well, charge up weapons. I don't know how you are about that. A lot of people don't like that actually. Like they prefer like hit scan and you know what I mean? No like projectile. I love the projectile and charge up and having that feel of power kind of on the weapon where you're going to like blast something. I really enjoy it. I think it's really, really cool. And the ammo economy on it is good as well. The purifier is very strong when it comes to that. And speaking of ammo economy, right? Like you guys just made this weapon customization, which was a very cool change. And a lot of them got way better ammo economy. And one of the most asked questions I get is, when is adjudicator and tenderizer and those getting drum max? Is that a possibility?
Can't comment on any potential new content, of course.
Gotcha. Okay.
With the weapon customization, we implemented the system with what we had, and some bespoke magazines, for example, they just require a bit more work because it's additional reload animations. You need audio for those bespoke reload animations, stuff like that. It's just a bit more work. But in general, we would love everything that looks customizable. It like has all the rails and like the magazines. To have customization. Can't promise when and where, but yeah, obviously we're going to expand on that. As we promised, we're going to expand on that. Again, it's just a matter of priorities, resources, and deadlines. The usual trifecta of boring stuff that we have to deal with.
That's awesome. And speaking of like the scheduling, how hard is it to get warbonds every month? Because it is every month, right? Like 30 to 40 days.
It's every 6 weeks, I believe nowadays. When we started, like when the game launched, we tried doing 4-week schedule every month, shipping warbonds. That was absolutely impossible. And the scope was unsustainable because we had like 3 armor sets, 3 primaries there. We had to kind of tone it down and replace with some other toys in the warbond to maintain kind of the value of it. But we're pushing it. Yeah, it's rough, but also it's not because just people are hungry for more content, even though they are. It's also we are very excited to do as many weapons as possible. Ministry of Defense is full of military over-interested people who just want to do polygons and laser turrets, and we have so many in the pile. So we are also, look, Arrowhead, it's not a big corporate entity, right? It's just a group of nerds that are too excited about too many things at the same time, and they have to deal with deadlines and the realities of production and that boring stuff.
Maybe a 2-handed plasma hammer, one day. Well, I'm just saying.
Plasma
one day.
hammer.
Yeah, like you swing over your head.
Powered by plasma, like the jet engine at the end, or just when you hit it, you create like a plasma explosion?
I had two thoughts, right? You and me discussed this when I was in Sweden. So one was like what you said, that was a very cool idea, kind of like it launches and you see this fire lit up, which kind of kind of helps you, give you the feeling of it gets power from that, like the swing, and you over swing it to the ground, and it could be a like AoE explosion, or you could have it like slam the ground, and it, because of how powerful the slam is, but I know this one's really hard to make, but now that we have the black hole animation, I mean, who knows? You know, it spawns that black hole, and it kind of in an AoE radius pulls enemies in, no damage even.
Void hammer,
Yes, void hammer would be a perfect way to put it, like something like that.
You see, we opened the door with the black hole, and now we can do that much of a wacky stuff. I'm gonna say that we're not gonna do such a like experimental sci-fi warbond every time. We still want to go back to our roots and do like pretty grounded fantasies for a while, because that's what makes control group special, right? And what makes it feel experimental, because everything else is kind of more or less stable. Like the purifier, you can hold the charge; it doesn't explode in your face. But when you're pushing it too far, then sometimes we need those peaks and like exciting, unique, cool items. So something like a hammer, again, not promising anything. I'm just thinking out loud. I would have made it so, considering that our Helldivers are not like space marines or something like that, they're not superhuman, they will probably barely be able to drag it on the ground, and sometimes just hit you once, spending all of the stamina, something like that. Because we don't want to push it too far. Like carrying that big of a hammer in our universe in terms of like believability, that will take, especially considering that you're already wearing, I don't know, a backpack, a recoilless on your back, and 2 weapons on the sides. You'll probably
maybe make it a support weapon.
We can make it a support weapon.
Support weapon. You just have it on your back, and then it just slams to the ground. It could take your stamina, but if it does take stamina, it needs to do massive damage. Now, like, dude, imagine combining that for a second with a jump pack, and while you're jumping in the air, you started and you slam on the charger and like splitting it. That would be insane. But
that's obviously pushing it. That is pushing it.
Yeah, push it, guys. We love it. We love that idea, you know? And I know you guys love it too, bro. Like you guys love those ideas. If you've probably had all the freedom, you would make some crazy toys. I would assume.
We need to show some restraint and be, the grounded fantasy, because that's what a lot of people love about Helldivers, that we don't go full, blue balls flying everywhere, like the energy jumps and stuff. It is a game set in the future where Earth just has more money, but practically the same kind of level of technology. They just have a bigger budget. So the way Super Earth fights stuff is just with more explosions or more ammo or more barrels, like the variable. That's the Super Earth way of designing stuff. Doing some sort of a gigantic hammer that slams into the ground. Again, speaking out loud, sounds like a different game, not Helldivers 2. Maybe we can Helldiverify it the way we Helldiverified Warpack.
Right?
Yeah. But the raw design, the way you describe it, that sounds to me like too much, unless we can make you miserable while carrying that thing, because that's what Helldiver would probably be, carrying a gigantic plasma or dark fluid hammer.
A few questions since we're talking about melees. Is it ever possible to have a dedicated slot for melee weapons? This has come up a lot, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think a lot of people run melee builds, right? Like I'm one of those guys that enjoys melee builds personally. I wish there was a little bit more animations. For example, you know how there's almost every weapon has one animation, and maybe an overhead hit or something like that, just for a combo animation style would be very, very cool. I don't know. I haven't tested this myself, but somebody did mention that you guys changed the melee weapons can't hurt chargers anymore. I don't know if that's true or not. And we're discussing this, and that kind of surprised me. I'm not going to lie, because I feel like melee is a niche play style, right? Like it really is a very niche play style. And one of the things that, people really enjoy about it is the fact that they can put on that spear or a shield and feel like a Spartan for a little bit. And like if a big charger is running at them, they're going to have fun with it. And I personally think that was fine. Like I didn't find it to be OP or anything. And even if in the future it will be moved into a dedicated slot, I think that would be great. Has that ever been a discussion to have its own slot?
Oh, first of all, Urban Legends. Absolutely love this warbond. The fact that we implemented the first melee weapon changed everything. And like this warbond changed everything, the way we do warbonds in the future. I will never shut up about any of the warbonds, so stop me. When it comes to melee weapons, obviously we knew that they're not going to be competitive and incredibly viable past, I don't know, difficulty 5 or a very specific cases when like on difficulty 7 to 10, you have an opportunity to swing your sword and like cut a bunch of illuminates, voteless in front of you, stuff like that. It is going to be niche slash meme weapon type anyways, because we're already pushing how much damage like a sword or a hammer or a spear does, right? So adding an equipment slot will not suddenly make the weapons viable, or buffing the damage a little bit on those weapons is not going to make it viable because, well, you're in close proximity to the enemy. It doesn't matter how much damage your sword deals if the charger just smashes you into the rock, right? But adding equipment slot would be great. My question would be which button on the gamepad that would be.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like on the controller side?
On the controller, yeah.
Yeah, it probably I think a lot of people nowadays have like, the back buttons on them, so they will probably be able to figure that out. Yeah. I think the reason why it would be good to have that as a dedicated slot, honestly, is because it would just add to the gameplay loop being more fun and open. Yeah. So you have your secondary and you have your melee. Like something's running at you, slice them up, switch to a secondary, boom, 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 slap them around, then your primary, and it adds just a little bit of more complexity to it, which means more fun, and then replayability becomes more interesting. So yeah, I feel like in the future, if you guys do go down that route, I think it would really, really be cool. I know a lot of people that are... Also, that would be a question though. Wait, no, the throwing knife takes the spot of the grenades anyway, so
it's a throwable.
Yeah, so it wouldn't affect that. But imagine with, like a lance.
it wouldn't hurt to introduce an equipment slot, especially like people wouldn't feel like they have to sacrifice like the sidearm slot for that, especially when we have stuff like the ultimatum, for example. I'm not gonna trade my ultimatum for a sword. So yeah, giving people more opportunity to sometimes whip out their I don't know, hammer or a stun baton and swing at a couple of enemies, that will add more like fun elements and more opportunities to borderline role playing sometimes, just swing at a couple of enemies, or you bonk a single food commander, all 4 of you, or you grab lances, all 4 of you, and like you hunt the mammals.
And it's not going to be OP at all. It's just going to add variety to the game. So I think that's why it would be a great addition to the game. Yeah.
And never say never, but it's not on our like top priority, unfortunately, because it's not something that people use, and when they use, they already meme with it, right?
Yeah, that's why I was surprised with once again, I haven't tested this, but if that is true, maybe you guys will think about reverting that. Because it was very weird to hear that, like, as you said, this niche kind of smaller play style, the melee weapons. I don't think it hurt anybody that the fact that the melee weapons were dealing damage to chargers. So like, I can't even name to you when was the last time I saw somebody, apart from myself, running at a charger with a melee weapon. It is fun though. This is one of the most asked questions as well. How do you guys test these items? Like, how are the decisions made? Is there a group of people that tests it? I know that a lot of companies have, for example, other companies, right? And they come in online and they test stuff. I personally know people that work in those companies and that used to test some other games, balancing and whatever. How does that happen? For example, for warbonds.
Are you asking how we play tested in terms of like fun or in terms of like finding bugs?
Bugs, fun, balancing. I would say everything.
Well, fun and balance, that's a single just play test. We do play tests with the prototypes of weapons, just with internal Ministry of Defense team, and sometimes like global, the whole company. We have like different play tests every day. Sometimes we play new missions, sometimes we play with new enemies, sometimes we play the new items in the warbond, and we gather all the feedback while we can. Some of that is, with the prototypes being pretty rough, some of the feedback is not very like actionable. So yeah, that's practically it. We play it together with other fellow designers and we share feedback. Does that feel good? Is that like good design wise? but weak, for example, or is it pretty powerful but not very special, stuff like that. And then we try to act on that feedback over the weeks of development.
Okay, I see. So it's more like an internal playtest. Essentially, you guys test it
mostly,
out, then the company tests it out, and so on.
Yeah.
And is it like a lot of the times also, for example, a warbond will come out. This warbond would also be an example of that. If you take a look at Epoch, right? Like we're discussing the fact of it might get a extra bullet. You know, the spread needs a little bit of work. Are those things, at least to me, it feels like are done on purpose, not to put out something that is really strong, because then the community's reaction to a nerf is like, oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. We can't have fun. And now they're going to nerf something. You know what I mean? But if you put it out like the way it is, then you can, let's say next week, drop a patch and add an extra bullet, right? To Epoch or fix the spread. Is that also a part of the design?
Well, to answer the real question that you ask, we are not pre-nerfing weapons just to avoid power creep. Nothing like that. We've shipped many weapons that were accidentally a bit too powerful, and we had to take it back from players. The ultimatum was one of the
but I don't think the ultimatum nerf was that bad, dude. Like, I know that people thought, right, in many ways it feels better. Like for the bugs, it's definitely a nerf in terms of the bots. But for the bugs, it honestly feels better. The explosion radius, I run it all the time. I can still one-shot Titans. I can still one-shot Impalers. And I can do essentially everything I used to do, but the explosion radius is bigger. So I don't think that was a, oh my God, nerf. And also the ammo got changed as well. So, I mean, that one wasn't as bad.
That was actually we were 100% aligned with the community on how to fix that, because, the demo... People suggested, a lot of people online suggested that, okay, take down the demolition strength, but please make it consistent with the ammo buffs, like the booster, for example, right?
Yes,
exactly. So we're like, okay, that makes total sense, and we agree, and that's exactly what we made, because that was our way to solve in that. We're not going to sacrifice, design coherency with all the weapons. And suddenly a booster has a fine print that doesn't work on a single weapon in the game. We don't want to do stuff like that. We had to take away the demolition strength. But going back, we had many situations when we shipped weapons that are either undertuned or overtuned, and we had to kind of fix that later. And that comes to the reason for that is, first of all, we get kind of, when you're working on a feature for weeks and months, I personally at least, I played 10 versions of the Epoch throughout the weeks while I was developing it, right?
Yeah.
So it at some point it becomes incredibly hard for me and even my fellow co-workers, my fellow designers, to evaluate if it's any good. We don't know anymore. I tried 100 different iterations. I buffed damage and nerfed damage and buffed the number of projectiles and ammo countless times. So only by shipping this feature and getting the feedback from the community, the whole cycle actually completes. Because we can have our own ideas about how powerful or strong or fun the weapon is, and we can make, we can test it internally, we can test it with an external company, we can make, closed beta sessions, but only letting that toy out in the wilds and having millions of players interact with it, then we can only get like the final feedback, the raw feedback from players, whether or not we did a good job or not. Some of the cases we absolutely nailed it, I think, like the Deadeye. I kind of YOLO'd the values. We playtested it, said good, and now it's out in the wilds, and apparently people enjoy the way it is without having us having to tune it. Some of the weapons and some of the other toys, we need players' feedback. Only then we can actually finalize a feature. And I think it doesn't only go to to video games specifically. It's just any artistic, any form of media, really. Because the way I see it, sorry if I go too high level, stop me.
No, it's all interesting.
When I go too far, but the way I see the dialogue and the relationship between us developers and the community is, we're like cooks, we're like chefs. You go to the restaurant, and me as a cook, I came up with some idea of a dish. I wanted to do something specific, and I have a bunch of ingredients, and I made this dish. And it might be the best thing in the world, but unless someone actually eats it, consumes it, tries it, and gives me honest feedback, it's worthless until someone plays it, practically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
So only by interacting with the content, the community, and our consumers and our players interacting with the content, only then we can kind of finalize a feature.
Okay.
Because we are co-creators, right? And that was funny. That was a fun. It was a very tough pill to swallow, actually, in the beginning, because before the game went live, we were the only sole owners of the whole game and every feature there. I was buffing and nerfing stuff left and right every day because it's just my work. But once stuff is out in the wilds, now it belongs to the players. We can't just take it away, and we cannot just change the stuff the way we used to before it went live. Now people own it. They bought it, they love it, they mastered it. Now with the weapon customization, they customized it to their specific taste, so it's theirs. They are co-creators in that sense. So we can't just, put our dirty hands back into the feature and changes because we feel like it.
Yeah.
And that was something that we missed in the beginning. I missed in the beginning, at least, personally, because okay, the railgun is a bit too much. Sorry, we need to take it away for the health of the game. Or like the breaker. The breaker dominated the meta too much on release. So sorry, folks, we have to take it away. But we probably, maybe we would have done that anyways, but I didn't realize how much players are attached to it now. Like how many players loved it the way it was and enjoyed it the way it was. So yeah, that's a lesson learned for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you said it yourself, right? And this happens in any creative process as well. Like not just, as you said, in other aspects in life. So for example, if I'm creating a thumbnail as well, and I'm making this for 4 hours, shout out to Takibo, he'll know. After 5 hours, you're looking at it, you don't even know if it's good or not, because like you've seen so many versions of it. Then you have to kind of step away or either ask people you actually trust, dude, is this good or not? Because I can't tell anymore. If we talk about like the warbonds in terms of this warbond, right? Where would you put it? Like, what are your top 3 favorite warbonds? Would you put it up there? Top 3? That's a tough one, huh?
That's a tough one. I would say my top 3 are Servants of Freedom, Urban Legends, and this one, Control Group. I don't know in which specific order because all of them are kind of powerful. What I love about all 3 of them is, we push the fantasy with all 3 of them. They are not just generic military warbonds. They're super wacky, like the whole fanatic thing for the Servants of Freedom, right? But also all 3 of them contain very cool toys that like have shaken the meta. For example, the Hellbomb backpack.
Yeah. Ultimatum
and double-edged sickle, and I'm kind of heartbroken that not many people are using Seeker. Maybe I need to increase the battery life of it. But I'm a Seeker enjoyer actually.
You mean the Seeker grenades?
Seeker grenades.
Seeker grenades. Yeah. We used it.
I run it on my solo build when I have no friends. I bring the drone, Seeker grenades, all the turrets. So I'm surrounded by friends, and I'm also bringing the Urban Legend booster all the time. So even Resupply Pod has a little gun on it, so it fights for me. I'm surrounded by friends at that point.
Didn't Urban Legend also bring the anti-tank emplacement?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a banger. That's a banger. Against the bots, that thing is one of my favorites. You position yourself well, you drop that thing, and dude, it's so much fun. Like, you know what I was thinking when I go into that mode, like when I start sitting on it and like you start shooting, what if one day we had a stratagem where you kind of throw this and what happens is your camera goes up as if you're looking from the ship and you have like 10 seconds of like bombing an area wherever you want. With like high caliber, because that's kind of the view it gives me. Like when I use the anti-tank emplacement, it's actually a very cool one. I think it's one of the more powerful. It's not a sentry, but you know what I mean. Like it is very powerful. It destroys.
Oh, I'm terrified of the anti-tank emplacement. The how powerful we made it. It had to be done because of it's a static emplacement. You are super vulnerable in it when you're surrounded by enemies, and it doesn't work on every faction. But when it does work, oh my god, that's terrifying. You're wiping all
it's so good,
all
dude.
the sentries on all turrets, everything.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like it's factory striders, hulks. It feels so good when you're just deleting them. So yeah,
But
for me,
I
it
always
would.
say if you're not at least a little bit terrified of a stratagem, better not ship it.
That's a good approach. That's a good approach because it has to have that excitement factor to it.
Yeah.
And if you're not afraid, as you said, then there's probably not enough excitement there. And when it comes to the warbonds, for me, it would be gas, warbond, for sure. I love the gas warbond. I think it's one of the best. This one is probably number one because of the war pack now. Because you mentioned like meta shifting, and those warbonds are always the most fun. Warbonds are what breathes new life into the game, and that's why I'm always so passionate about the weapons as well. Like that's why I would like to see, for example, more medium armor pen or more explosive. I think they affect the gameplay loop a little bit more. And this weapon, this light pen, like when I was rating it, in my video, I believe I said, like, if you're a light pen enjoyer, you're going to rate this probably around 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. It's unique. It has modes. But if you're not a light pen enjoyer, then it's just a light pen weapon. And I think the medium pen hits those middle marks. You know what I mean? Like it hits like, oh, the light pen is happy. The crazy sweaty players are happy as well. But the warbonds are so important. And Warpack was the perfect example of this. Just because of that item alone, it's my favorite warbond at the moment, I would say. Then it would be gas. And then, then that's a tough one, man. Probably the Eruptor. Probably that one, because that was
democratic detonation.
Yeah, that was a really big meta shifter as well, right?
The back for Bung is obviously the first two warbonds. Not the first two. The first two we shipped after release. Democratic detonation, cutting edge. Obviously, in terms of the value they provide, they are so the biggest one. I'm talking mostly about like how fun it was to develop and like work on, and how unique those are. Because for me, for example, the Urban Legend was a very groundbreaking one because it's the first warbond where we actually tied that to a story. Because the colonies were developed at the same time, the Illuminates were developed at the same time, and it was the first time we actually made a warbond for other contra drops at the same time. We tried doing that before. If I remember correctly, the chemical agents was supposed to be tied with the gloom somehow, and then Truth Enforcers was supposed to be, the Truth Police, finding all the dissidents and people who spread propaganda about the Illuminates coming soon, which is why we brought the Truth Police. But Urban Legends is the first one where we actually nailed it and tied that to the story. But also, in the beginning, Urban Legends started as a city protectors, whatever, military folks. But then, in a stroke of genius, our art director came up with the armor concepts with the Mohawks and like armor that looks more like Spartan one.
Yeah.
And then that's where it all clicked, because it's a weird fantasy to put into the Helldivers 2 game raw as it is. You're not cosplaying. You're not like running half naked with actually like, copper shield.
Yeah.
But we can Helldiverify that and transform that into something that absolutely works into the game, but the references are obvious and references are kind of out there. So which is where we push the boundaries a little bit to see what can actually be done with warbonds and how cool of a fantasy we can do, which is where it all clicked with like, we're doing melee this time because we need a spear. We're doing some weird directional shield, which I know not a lot of people love, but like all of that was built together, and the anti-tank placement as well, and the booster as well. Even though that those are not the most powerful toys, it all clicked together for that fantasy that we discovered we can actually do in Helldivers.
Yeah.
So which is why I love this warbond.
No, it is a dope warbond. I think that the introduction of melee was also a game changer, even though it is a niche play style. Maybe in the future it gets updated, you know what I mean? Grab a few. It doesn't even need that much. I don't think Helldivers is that kind of game that needs, like, for example, crazy in-depth melee combat. But I think just a few more animations and a little bit maybe movement with the melee weapons, and it would be dope. There's also the second side of it, and you probably noticed this as well. People and gamers always strive for power, right? Like it's all about this power fantasy. And even though Helldivers 2 isn't supposed to be or wasn't supposed to be that kind of game, you guys had to shift a little bit and kind of widen the power fantasy, so to speak. For example, with the Warpack, great example. a banger, right? So
after Masters of Ceremony, we finally realized that people don't tolerate warbonds without any cool, powerful tools in it.
yes, yeah, that's how it goes. I feel like it's just not just Helldivers, man. Like I'm sure you guys are gamers, you play other games. It's always like people always have this very hard, powerful feelings when it comes to when they hear the word meta. But the reality is every online, especially live service game, will always have meta. And the same way, there's nothing wrong with having meta and playing meta. The same way, there's nothing wrong with people just playing whatever they want that's not meta. People were saying that the Epoch should one-shot everything. Okay? I with all due respect, I disagree. I don't think that the Epoch should be one-shotting a factory strider, bro. Why would I ever run an anti-tank if it one-shots? However, it could have a one more ammo and it wouldn't be OP. And that's the kind of conversations that we as a community and you guys as a studio should have and are having. And that's what's awesome because the game has been making some changes that are like that. The only, once again, place where I feel like that there is the most talked about is always going to be the primary weapons. Has that been your experience as well? Like when you guys look at the feedback, what is the overwhelming feedback about for you guys?
We get a lot of feedback about primaries, kind of more than we anticipated, because for us initially, as I said, primaries are good against small to medium enemies, chaff, and maybe hurting big ones, but not killing them very efficiently. Maybe we shouldn't have called it primary slot, because primary kind of assumes that this is your rifle. Other people have their own, but this is yours. But yeah, I think we still stand by what we mean, and we want the stratagems to be the star of the show because this is the powerhouse. This is what's unique about the game. And
does that include? Sorry to interrupt. Does that include support weapon stratagems or just the reds?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The support weapon is a special category, but we don't want to, primaries to overlap with support weapons too much. We have a couple of examples, like a Raptor kind of competes with a couple of support weapons at that point. But we don't want that to always be the case. We don't want them to blend together and be like interchangeable. It's just a slot 1 and slot 3 for you. We still want you to feel like a support weapon is something either incredibly effective or incredibly, convenient, like Stalwart, for example, or something very specific that, a cookie cutter against a specific use case. So we still stand by where we wanna be, but obviously, the discussions about primaries are dominating.
I figured that's why I wanted to ask. I was interested.
Yeah. But here's the thing: we don't want to, fight the meta. The meta exists, always exists. We don't want to fight the meta anymore. We want to shake it up from time to time. We might do that by introducing new tools that now work better with the underused weapons, or we might introduce new armor passives that now have cool synergies, or we might do something with the enemies and like new enemy types, and suddenly the Blitzer is great against the new bug faction because it stuns everything and they don't have the time to kill you, stuff like that. Yeah. Blitzer is great against it. So we want to shake up the meta. We don't want you to, pick the same weapon every time because you will burn out and just leave the game. Because, you've heard this phrase, given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of the game. So if one tool is a go-to tool for every case, people will pick it all the time. They will not experiment that much. Not because they are, their worst enemies, but because instead of they have to choose between being effective at the battlefield, especially with like a group of your teammates, or handicapping yourself for the sake of self-imposed fun. And we don't want players to have make that choice every time. So we would love all the weapons to be more or less equally powerful and maybe something more specific for specific use cases, and let players choose whatever they feel like playing the most without feeling like they're handicapping yourself.
I got you. And speaking of support weapons, well, you know what? First, let's talk about the armor, because we went all around the place and forgot about the armor.
Oh, yeah.
The armor in the warbond, right? So from my experience after, using it and whatever, I feel like it's definitely more of the role play aspect of the warbond, more so than the other items, because
Mhm.
I couldn't find really, once again, when it comes to performance, max difficulty, I couldn't find a usefulness for it in terms of performance or on max difficulty. So that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is another armor piece that is more like a role play aspect, which I'm probably not going to be using a lot on max difficulty over some of the other armor pieces. Or is there some kind of play style you think that could be built around it?
There is certainly a playstyle. I think more of speedrunny playstyle with maybe a dead sprint booster, even to just and a hellbone backpack, for example, to just run the objective as fast as possible. If you're dead, you get up at like you have 5 seconds, and as a last stand, you activate the hellbone backpack, stuff like that. There is a playstyle. It's not incredibly effective, and planning for your own death is planning for failure. So you would rather just
Yeah.
plan for survivability to begin with.
Yeah.
It is more of a unique ability if you wanna have that playstyle. Absolutely, be my guest. Here's the tool for you. Some people asked for some sort of a last stand feature, like bleed out feature. So we gave it to them. It fits narratively and like thematically into the warbond, which is why we put it here, because you are the test subject, you are the lab rat. So they just hooked up the adrenaline defibrillator, pumped you full of stims, and like zapped you back to life, but messed up your body so much that you are the dead man walking. That works narratively so perfectly. We couldn't have done any other armor passive, right? But obviously it doesn't compete with, I don't know, just raw boosts to your survivability or raw boosts to your ammo. It is somewhat of a problem because, as I said, people would have to choose between a fun gimmick or straight up just a powerhouse armor passive, right? So it calls for some sort of a revamp of the armor passive system. Maybe in the future we need to look into that, because obviously there's such a big discrepancy between powerful armor passives and weak ones. Now we started to mitigate that a little bit with additional bonuses, like for the adrenaline defibrillator, you have arc immunity and the stim, not immunity, but 50% arc immunity, and stim duration. So we're trying to mitigate that. The unflinching is another example of that. We try to give you something else, so it's the effect always works, even if you're not using its primary gimmick effect.
Yeah, so it's not just tied to one thing, and it's not just roleplay. You get a little bit of something else to have usefulness from it. We're talking about like transmog, right? And this is a very, I understand, like a subject where it's going to take a lot of thought. Is there a possibility to see a transmog system? Like Destiny 2 took like a few years, but they finally did it and people loved it. Is there ever a possibility to have that kind of thing when it comes to armors?
Sounds great. Unfortunately, I can't comment on any potential
Okay.
Even I don't know if there's anything in the works. I think we still stand by what Pilistad said on Twitter. That the armor looks exactly the way that it's supposed to behave. Again, not from the realism standpoint, but in terms of believability. This armor looks like it has all those fluids that pump through you when you're about to die. We have a couple of armors that don't do that, and I would rather fix them. Like there is a servo-assisted armor with a servo-assisted perk that doesn't look servo-assisted at all. I would rather fix those, but right now the point still stands that now we want armors to do exactly what they look like. Again, thinking out loud, if I was tasked with making armor customization system or like a transmog system, stuff like that, we would have to, change some of the core elements of the armor once you're switching between. Visually is once you're switching between different perks. So if you're taking a normal armor and switching to like service assisted again, boom, now you have a prosthetic arm, something like that. That's a gigantic amount of work, of course, but that's how I would have approached it. Again, thinking out loud. Because we need to maintain this level of believability. The armor that looks like a medic one wouldn't suddenly give you explosion protection.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Well, guys, I asked, so I had to ask. We talked about support weapons as well, and there's a few of them that I would really love to discuss in terms of like the idea behind them. For example, the gas warbond came with sterilzer, right? And sterilzer is such a unique tool in its own way, and I was very excited. But when it comes to performance, and you guys probably see this in terms of numbers as well, it's pretty underused. I barely see anybody use it, because especially now when you made the gas backpack so beautiful and so good. And the AI, why is that, by the way, why is the AI so good on that one compared to other backpacks? Because it's so effective.
We
It's
updated
aggressive.
the AI specifically for the dog breath rover because before, I believe, like when we shipped it, it was just aggroing on the first enemy and just constantly spraying it in the face, which wasn't that effective for this specific item because the damage per second is abysmal on this thing because that's not the point. The point is to just blind it.
Yep.
Which is we updated the AI specifically so it prioritizes enemies that are not yet gassed, not yet blinded.
Yeah. It's a really good upgrade, by the way. Yeah. It feels incredible.
For other guard dogs, I would say, yeah, its primary purpose, rovers, its primary purpose is to kill stuff. So it would make sense to just focus on the enemy and damage it until it dies.
And is it possible for example, the Arc Dog has this issue. It completely neglects close targets. Like, you know how bugs sometimes, or even whatever it doesn't matter, Illuminate is running at you. Something might be like next close to me, or 3, 4, 5 targets. I have a bunch of clips of this, and it will just target something really far away. Is it in any way possible to make it like prioritize something in close range to keep us alive a little bit more?
Yeah, we need to look into that. I wonder, I'm not entirely sure how the prioritization system works for K9 specifically. Maybe it prioritizes the biggest target. Maybe it prioritizes whatever is closest to the drone itself. So I need to look into that. Potentially, yeah, why not? Since it's a dog that's supposed to protect you, might as well prioritize enemies in front of you.
Yeah, it would make sense because it is very frustrating when you're fighting and I'm kind of shooting something. I need this thing to get things off of me close range, you know?
Yeah.
And it just zaps something 30 meters away. It has crazy range, by the way. I see
the drone does that better. The gas drone does that better.
Yeah, But back to the sterilizer.
On the other hand, if there's an enemy between you and your K9, you probably don't want it to shoot at the enemy because it will bounce at you.
Yeah, it will zap you too. Yeah. Have you guys ever thought about reworking the sterilizer? Has that been a thought process?
Not really. Not something that we've discussed recently because it's just the way that weapon would work. We just made the gas system first and the way it like affects enemies, and then we tried to develop as many delivery mechanisms as possible. The drone, the grenade, the mines. We had the orbital gas strike before, and just the spray weapon that just sprays enemies in front of it with the same gas. That made sense. I saw a bunch of ideas of like it should create gas volumes, for example. We need to look into that. I've heard people and like their suggestions of how to improve it.
Like create
obviously
gas clouds
it's not obviously not the best tool that players have. For some people who want to play the sterilizer archetype, they have this opportunity. But as usual, we wouldn't want people to sacrifice their efficiency just for the sake of roleplay, right?
Yeah, because it is a cool tool. The idea behind it is actually really nice. It's just that like it almost feels like you take it into higher difficulties and it just doesn't pay off. And especially when you have the guard dog, you slap that on, and then the crowd control is so good with that thing that you can run a flamethrower instead, and then you just have the best of both worlds, and you're melting everything. Some kind of change would be very nice in the future.
Do you think a gas should be flammable? Because I saw a bunch of people suggest that.
I've said that some time ago. Have you played Anthem when it came out?
No, unfortunately. No.
So Anthem had this, even though it completely died and they didn't do anything with the game, but they had this really cool mechanic where you had every class, they had 3 classes, they worked really well with each other. So there was almost like a mage class that would freeze something, and then when the other class could attack that element with a different element, there was an explosion. So I always had this idea of like, if you're creating, like imagine this thing of you're throwing a gas grenade, for example, and then if you flame it with anything, there's like a quick like burn. And it damages enemies around it. So to answer your question, of course, that would be incredible. That would be insane, dude.
I played too much of Divinity Original Sin 2, I think, because that's the game that has a bunch of synergies and like elemental synergies and a lot of surfaces on the floor. And there's a bunch of surfaces like poison and oil that are flammable, which turns the whole battlefield with a single spark, turns it into just fire, which kind of which is the opposite of what we wanted with the gas, because initially, before we did the warbond, the orbital gas strike, it was just green flame practically. It's a single volume that just deals damage to anything inside it. It didn't have a confuse effect. It didn't blind enemies even. And we really wanted the gas to feel special and like crowd control, as you said, instead of a green flame or flavor of flame, right?
Yeah.
So by making it flammable, unfortunately, I'm afraid it will turn everything into fire forever, which will kind of make the fire less special. That will make the gas less special, right?
Maybe not turn it into fire, but just have this instant spark that deals damage.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and then because of that, you know, it's not going to hurt the fire. It's still going to keep the nature of the gas. You can decide if you want to crowd control. In that time, you're not going to spark it up, but if you want to have that effect.
We also had idea to instead give it like the acid effect, the acid rain effect that softens the armor.
Yes.
We decided to go with crowd control and like confusion. We can't blend it too much. I think acid is acid and gas is gas. Gas is more blinding and confusing, and acid is acid. Maybe we'll make. I wonder if we'll make like a gas weapon sometime in the future. I again cannot promise anything. Just speaking out.
Acid weapon would be dope. Like if even if it was a support weapon where you could just literally, it wouldn't do damage per se, but it could be used as a tool to increase your damage of your primary or increase your damage of other support weapons. You just spray
or
a big
reduce
target.
the armor of the enemy, and then here you go. All the light armor penetration weapons are viable again, right?
Now we're talking. Now we're running those ARs finally, you know? Yeah. One of those changes that was also very, very interesting, and we've discussed this so much, like me and Maple and the boys as well, is, for example, if you take the laser cannon, right? The way it works. Has there ever been a talks about essentially making it work a little bit like the double-edged sickle? It doesn't have to be crazy like that in terms of scaling, but the longer you shoot with the laser, maybe get like 10-15% increase on after the half magazine and increase the damage.
We discussed the similar designs, actually two kind of opposite ways of doing that. Either the weapon that kind of heats up and starts dealing more damage later, like the double-edged sickle, or the opposite, the weapon with like thermal throttling. So it starts powerful, but as it overheats, it starts to throttle itself and like reduce its own effectiveness just so it doesn't overheat. That introduces two completely different play styles, and we toyed with that idea. Maybe we'll introduce it. I don't think we want to redesign the current laser cannon, though, because there's a lot of laser cannon enjoyers, and we don't want to just give it back. It's a completely different weapon now. Slap the wrists like that. But yeah, that's a cool idea, and we discussed it maybe sometime in the future. Who knows? So
like a completely different kind of tool, essentially, but leaving.
Yeah,
the
usually that's the
alone.
way we do that. We don't want to redesign existing items. The only time we did that, which was pretty scary, was again the gas, because the orbital gas dealt a lot of damage in that area, and suddenly we're redesigning that. And not a lot of people used it, but there was a dedicated group of orbital gas enjoyers, and that was scary, you know. We kind of had to do this before the warbond, because the whole warbond is based on this new gas effect. It was kind of scary to say, well, sorry folks, I know that you like that. We would have to redesign it for the sake of like the game health and the fun aspect of the game. If you want another orbital area of effect strike, you have napalm strikes and stuff like that now.
Okay.
But usually, we don't want to go back and like redesign the whole weapon. We would rather do a new one.
No redesign, but what about, and hear me out here, warbonds, right? Warbonds are your babies. So this one would drive the community nuts. Stealth warbond with a 50 cal sniper, not 50 cal, but a heavy hitting medium pen or above sniper that people can play like stealthy, like on bot missions, even on bug missions, because on bugs it's really hard. But maybe you can somehow pull it off a little bit with the latest changes. It is a little bit more possible. So a stealth warbond, I don't know, like if it's possible or if it's, I mean, invisibility's in the game. We can get that tech also reverted. You know what I mean? Like a predator style armor piece. boom, you make it cool and you go invest for maybe a few seconds just to infiltrate a place. That would be wild.
Well, we heard the community longing for a stealth warbond. There's nothing I can say really. Like the game is not really designed about stealth, right? It's practically a horde shooter, and the people who do stealth play style, they do that. Well, not suboptimally, but like obviously the game was not designed for it because we don't have huge icons that enemy spotted. We don't have the vision cones. We don't have any clear visibility or clear elements of how normally stealth game works. Also, when actually the alarm is raised and like you have a horde of enemies on you, we don't have any good tools to reset the state of the game, because normally in stealth game guards just must be my imagination, then they go back to their patrols. We don't have anything like that because all of the enemies, they see you, they know where you are, they can smell you, and they want to bite your head off. So
that's good to hear, actually, to understand the mechanical side of what can be an issue in this case to implement this kind of thing. You know what I mean? That's always very good to hear, because a lot of the times, there's questions. Oh, why is this not in the game? Why is this not a game? And this is why I like to ask these kind of questions to give you guys the opportunity to explain. Oh, for example, this mode is hard to do because there's limitations or the amounts of enemies or so on. But yeah, it's warbonds.
I don't want to say no to any ideas, because again, we would be excited about role-playing stuff, something like that as well. Yeah, but not all the play styles are just feasible in our kind of game. One of the example is that I always bring up is the stim pistol. People thought that they wanted a stim pistol and they asked for it, and we gave it to players. But it turns out, even if we give it like guiding as people wanted, even if we let you stim yourself, still in the game as hectic as ours, the stim pistols are not as viable sometimes, and it's better for you to just whip out your primary and deal more damage rather than support the other guy, right? I think some of the things, they exist for people who want to try it, and we can make it more viable. I know that the stim pistol is not very, very effective. We can try to make it more viable. It won't solve the issue, right? The way the game works, the way the challenges they're presented to the player, none of them clash. None of them work well with some other toys like stim pistol or stealth in general. Not impossible.
No, I think that when it comes to the stim pistol, one thing that you guys might want to kind of look at a little bit different is people want to play a real support role. And I think if you make that stim pistol, good guiding, you can stim yourself, you would see people, the supply backpack, the stim, now it actually does something. He's like the real medic armor, running around, boom, stimming everybody. I think that's what people are looking for, because right now, if you pick up the stim pistol, it doesn't really make you a better support character, and it also doesn't essentially bring any value, and that's why they don't bring it. I don't think it's because the game won't support it, so to speak, because I think that Helldivers fans are so passionate, they'll make it work. They'll figure it out. If the tool is like performing the way they have imagined it, in terms of like being this maniac of a support medic running around and all he cares about is like healing you, I think that would change.
I would like to challenge that, because that kind of goes against what you said with the efficiency of weapons, right? Because why would you run around and heal if you can have, I don't know, a purifier and just kill all the stuff before it damages your teammates? It is a role-playing style. Role-playing as medics is absolutely fine, and we are up for giving role-playing tools to people. It's just, it won't be super popular. We won't win the whole community with that.
Anyways, no. Right? And I agree with that. Personally, I would still never use it. Like the same way I would not use a light pen weapon, I wouldn't use that. But I think it also goes back to the role play. Is somebody that will role play, he will role play with a little bit more power. And I think a lot of the times, both of those things can be true at the same time. You can role play, but an item could be good. Does that make sense? And
yeah, like the flag. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the flag, yeah. The flag is my pain point. The flag was one of those things. I think that it being a support slot is what kind of hurts the flag. I think that if it was just a secondary weapon as a flag, I think it would have been fine. I think people would have used it a little bit more. I actually had this poll on my channel, like on one of the bigger streams, and I asked people, how many people have you seen with the flag after the first 2-3 days after the warbond dropped? And most of the people were saying, I barely see it and that kind of thing. And yes, it has its niche. It's for fun. But I think flag would be also a great example of, it could be, if it is a support backpack, maybe have a little bit, and I'm sure this was probably brainstormed as well, some kind of team effect, but that I would assume goes back to the mechanical side of the game, where it's hard to do and the game is just not designed that way, right?
We just don't do magic in the game, so something like giving democracy protects to everyone in the radius goes against the believability of the game, even though that would have made the flag more viable. Just goes against our game is a satire, right? So that's one of the satirical element of it. The support weapon, the one true flag, does exactly what you expect a stick with a cloth on it to do.
Is there any passion warbond project that you think of in your head, just hypothetical, that you would love to work on?
Oh, that's a good question. Because anything that I can think of, we can still make. So going a bit into a wilder territory.
Yes.
I don't know, freeze race, like role playing as a Mr. Freeze.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that, Alex.
Like
don't do that. Don't get me that excited. Seriously?
No. Again, can't promise any future
I
content.
know, but
also this is kind of again, this is super weird for the Helldivers would be. That's also pushing it. We don't do that kind of sci-fi, and we don't do
we
Mr.
get frozen
Freeze
in we get frozen in those chambers before we get into the technology there. You know?
So the door is open. Yeah.
The door is open, literally. It opens to let us into the ship. Man, it was an awesome conversation. What is your message to the community before we go?
Keep playing. Please keep giving us feedback, because this is something we cannot get anywhere else. We value all the feedback and harsh criticism as well as the praise when we're doing good. So thank you all for sticking with us. We will keep cooking, and the only thing we ask from you is your trust, a little bit of just give us a little more time. Just let us cook, and we will deliver as much as we can, because Arrowhead is a bunch of just nerds that are too excited about too many things at the same time. Thank you all for sticking with us. Thank you for everyone who trusts in us, and we'll keep doing that.
And guys, also remember, feedback. Drop the feedback in the comments. Keep it constructive, keep it interesting, come up with ideas. And thank you so much, man. It was a phenomenal conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Baskinator. Thank you, Mitch. It was awesome. And once again, thank you guys so much for your time.
Our pleasure.